I was so afraid. The fear that my father would be handed, in his mind, the worst nightmare of his that he could imagine, that he could have a gay son. It was overwhelming.
I'm Sarah Cunningham, pronouns are she, her, founder of Free Mom Hugs.
And I'm Katrina Cobb, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm the program director and social media manager for Free Mom Hugs. And we are proud to be a part of the mission and the movement that is keeping queer kids alive.
Our mission at Free Mom Hugs is to empower the world to celebrate the LGBTQIA+ community through visibility, education, and conversation.
And in our second season of the Pride 365 podcast, we're focusing on Out for Equality. With Coming Out Day on October 11th and an historic election approaching, we felt it was important to speak to LGBTQ+ folks about their coming out stories and to hear devoted allies describe their journeys to not just supporting the LGBTQ+ community, but fighting boldly for their equality.
This presidential election is one that no one can keep their vote silent on. In order to ensure a safe and free America for our LGBTQ+ family and friends, the time is now to come out for equality. In 1978, Harvey Milk, California's first gay man to be elected to public office, said, "Gay brothers and sisters, you must come out. Come out to your parents. I know that it's hard and will hurt them, but think about how they will hurt you in the voting booth. Come out to your relatives. Come out to your friends, if indeed they are your friends. Come out to your neighbors, to your fellow workers, to the people who work where you eat and shop. But once and for all, break down the myths, destroy the lies and distortions, for your sake and for their sake."
In this episode of our second season, Out for Equality, we'll be visiting with Matthew Paul Turner, well-known and celebrated Christian author for over 20 years. He now has an even bigger community who love him for his heartwarming children's books full of acceptance and love. He's also known for his bravery in coming out late in life and publicly navigating the gains and losses that journey takes. We can't wait for this amazing conversation.
When Chasten Buttigieg was asked on an elevator at our Love Revolution conference, "What is Free Mom Hugs?" he responded simply, "It's a group of moms keeping queer kids alive."
And we are so excited to announce the second annual Love Revolution Conference. Last year in Oklahoma City was an incredible success with over 300 people in attendance who all left empowered to love bigger and better. We can't wait to gather again in Dallas, Texas, April 4th through 7th in 2025, so we can continue to change the world together.
When you dance alone, spinning like a cyclone, being whoever, whatever in a world all your own, God smiles, and here's why. In the spark of your eye, a familiar reflection shines bright from inside. 'Cause when God made you, and the world oohed and awed, in heaven they called you an image of God. When God Made You by Matthew Paul Turner.
Sarah, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time when we were even first discussing a podcast. Matthew Paul Turner was big on my list. And yes, and on yours as well. But partly because, he shares a similar story with my wife, Malia, and the process of being married and living that life and then coming to a point of coming out and knowing that that was going to be difficult, to say the least, on your family, but also knowing that you needed to and you had to. So I'm looking forward to hearing from him and how he processed all that.
Yeah, I thought this morning about, Malia was my friend first. before.
Yeah. Before. All right, you can have her.
Yeah, but really thinking back about how you guys met and just falling in love, finding your soulmate, coming out late in life, and everything that it cost you and everything that you've gained.
Right.
And everything you two went through. I'm just so proud and impressed with the way you've handled it with the blended family and creating this beautiful home. But it's kind of funny. I remembered that when you first told me,
right?
She confessed, like, Sarah, I have to tell you something. And I was clueless. I thought they just enjoyed my company so much that we were three spending time together. But no, they were
yes,
sizing each other up. I don't know.
I had to tell you that I was having some feelings, so I took you out to eat.
Yeah,
I told you I was having
serious.
some feelings. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I went home straight away, and I told Rex, I said, Katrina's got a crush on Malia. And he goes, duh.
That's right. That's right.
But I was having the time of my life with my two very best friends.
I know. We were the three amigos.
Mm-hmm. But I learned a lot. I learned so much from the two of you, just what it cost. And I learned about internalized homophobia, which we're going to talk about later.
Right.
And just thank you for trusting me with that. And to Malia, too. You're so dear to me. And just thank you for letting me in on that part of your life.
Well, you're a big part of it. And we wouldn't be here without you. And with our
damn right.
That's
my
right.
friend first.
But with our anniversary and everything, it is a very sweet and special time to remember the journey. Bumpy as it was, it was not easy and is not easy. But it is still 120% worth it.
Worth it. I was going to say, was it worth it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Was it worth it? What's that song? Was it worth it?
I don't know, but you keep singing.
Sorry. Was it worth it? Never mind.
Yeah, I cannot wait to talk to Matthew and ask him if he has the same feelings of, there's this side of you wish that people could come out early in life, and that he and Malia and myself, that we could have been ourselves as teenagers and miss some of this pain. But at the same time, the journey has given us family and kids that we love and adore, and we would never trade that. And so we just have to keep figuring out how to help people in the future.
There's so much power in being able to live authentically, but so many people have to wait
Right.
till late in life. But wouldn't it be wonderful if society allowed people just to be themselves as teenagers and young adults instead of having to wait to come out later in life? If people could just live authentically, we would not be in the mess we're in today.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Authentically, the word of the year.
Yes, authentic. What's good on social media these days?
Free mom hugs.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And hey, we got a YouTube channel with all our videos and educational panels.
And our website is full of valuable information and resources to help you on your journey. You can also find ways to get involved, donate, and purchase your authentic Free Mom Hugs merchandise. We refer to our OG shirts as the billboard of our mission. When people see someone in a Free Mom Hug shirt, they instantly know that person is a safe and supportive ally. And with every purchase, the funds go directly back into the organization so we can continue on the mission to create visibility, education, and conversation. Go to freemomhugs.org today.
We are so grateful for all of you who continue to give and to support the mission. I know that each dollar goes far and wide and makes a difference in the lives of the LGBTQ plus community and those who love them.
I was the first one here, waiting to talk to our guest today.
Lies.
But I stayed up late reading about our guest today and just so impressed and proud to be able to have this conversation and to be on this side of the story. And I don't know why this is at the forefront of my mind, but we're here today with Matthew Paul Turner.
Right.
A remarkable man who started writing 20 years ago, made your mark in the Christian children's book publishing world. And I love that I found a
phrase here that was unmatched gift for rhyme blended with deliberate messages of hope and empowerment. And I could not describe his children's books any better.
Right, absolutely true.
Matthew's an accomplished photographer and journalist. Did you know, Katrina, that he traveled all over the world documenting National Geographic's The Story of God with Morgan Freeman? I watched that.
You did.
Yep, I
I
sure
need to
did.
watch it. I can't imagine. That has always been a side dream of mine when the world is crazy. I always say, you know what? I just want to be a National Geographic photographer. That's just it. I just want to photograph snow leopards and just wait for them to show up.
Well, we've in the right conversation for that bucket list to have a conversation. For the past decade, Matthew has traveled extensively with World Vision, documenting the vast effects of poverty and humanitarian efforts of the nonprofit world. His writing has appeared in outlets that include the Washington Post, National Geographic, USA Today, and the Daily Beast. Matthew lives in Nashville, Tennessee, with his 3 elementary-aged children, and in his free time, he enjoys photography, woodworking, and cooking for his family and friends. I want to be a part of that circle.
I know.
So let's get started. Let's get into this.
Let's do it. Matthew, welcome.
It's so good to be here. Thank you. I have looked forward to getting to spend this time with you. Thank you.
Yes, I will say that when we first started even talking about doing a podcast and then started putting up our ideas for guests, you were my first one
My
on
first.
the list. Nope, me. And it was like, whatever we do, I want Matthew Paul Turner.
Listen, I didn't even spell out your name. I just put MPT.
That's right.
That's amazing. I love
Yes,
it. Well,
yes.
thank you. I am honored that it worked out and that I get to be here.
That's wonderful. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little bit of background, and then we'll get into a great conversation.
Yeah, I'm a writer. I grew up in Wharton, Maryland, which is a tiny little town on the eastern shore of Maryland. I lived 7 miles from Baltimore, but it took an hour and a half to get there because we'd have to go and cross the Bay Bridge to get there. But I was raised early in my childhood. My parents helped start a fundamental Baptist church that became our life when I was 4. And one of the story that I tell to explain my church experience was when I was in 2nd grade. I had a Sunday school teacher who set a Barbie doll on fire to explain hell.
Oh my word.
Whoa.
Holy cow.
Yeah, no, it was a lot. I mean, and that was just that's just one story. So it's like, I mean, it was one of those kinds of churches where, hellfire was just, it was normal. It was more normal to hear about hell and how we weren't good than it was to hear that we were loved. That was just part of my whole childhood. And then I also went to the school that was connected with the church, which was probably more affecting than the church itself. And so I was raised very conservative. And so my deconstruction and my evolving was, it was hard because every single change, every single shift that I went through, it was a source of pain and grief for every member of my family. And so if I went, I wasn't allowed to go to a movie theater as a kid. And so when I went to my first movie theater when I was 19, I was 19 when I went to my first movie theater. And I remember it turned into this huge, what is Matthew doing? Where oh my gosh, it was just a big thing. And for everyone else, it was just normal everyday life. Shifting and changing and evolving, whether that was from a theological standpoint. I mean, I remember when I went through my Calvinist stage, okay? Because back in the 90s, we all had to go through our little Calvinist stage, and it was sort of a rite of passage.
Right.
And so I experimented with Calvinism, and so that was a huge argument with my family. And of course, anything that was on the other side of that spectrum, where it was like drinking alcohol or watching a particular show, it all the things, like every single shift away from it was I think it was Rachel Held Evans who called it all a slippery slope.
Yes.
And she was very much right. So it was a slippery slope for myself, and it was a traumatic experience too, because of how every little shift affected my family.
Right. I can't imagine that you would feel like an unintentional rebel. Like I don't picture you as someone who like enjoys being a rebel. But it seems like you
are you being funny right now?
Well, no, I know we could have fun together and cause trouble. I'm not saying that.
No, he totally looks like a rebel rouser to me.
Well, because when I first started blogging, my handle across the internet was Jesus Needs New PR. And so I had people, when I was started to looking for a Christian book deal in children's books, I had publishers tell me that because of my online presence as being Jesus Needs New PR, I was too much of a lightning rod to write children's books.
Dangerous.
One of the publishers even asked if they could put my then wife's name on the book as opposed to mine.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, so as time goes on and you move into realizing more about yourself as well and your identity, how in the world were you able to reconcile that part of yourself? And I'll let you tell that story.
Well, I honestly had gotten to a place where I did not think that I would ever reconcile. There was a point probably when you mentioned the book When God Made You. I remember there being a time when I was writing that book, and I've written most of my children's books while walking around either on nature paths or even just like parking lots of Publix or Kroger or whatever. Like I've written the majority of my children's books, like just hang out in the parking lot at the local Publix here in Bellevue. And I remember there being a moment when I was writing a part of that book and it got to a space where I was like, I might never come out, but how can I use this opportunity to write children's books to pave a way for other people to not have the same story as me? And so, I think, in the preparation for this interview, the idea of me being affirming for everybody else was easy. It was easy to get to a place where I could vote on behalf of my my LGBTQ friend. But getting to that place of where I could do the same thing for me was like beyond. It wasn't even on my radar, to be honest. Like it wasn't like I didn't even think it would ever be possible. And so and in that impossibility, there is a depression that set in. There is
Sure.
a sad, like I used to call it there was a fog that I lived in. And it wasn't like I was this terribly unhappy human. I just, while other people had the full capacity to feel whole, I had settled for for a never gonna feel whole.
Right.
Like I
Like
was like
enough.
I just had settled for that, and that affected my relationship with Jessica, who was my ex-wife and still best friend, and like it affected how I interacted with my kids to some degree. Like it became all encompassing
Right.
the older I got, um, and so like I just I had to do a lot of therapy and do a lot of work on myself and become unafraid. Um, I I was so afraid of disappointing my family. I was the fear that my father would be handed in his mind the worst nightmare of his that he could imagine, that he could have a gay son. Um, like it was overwhelming.
Right. Well, I mean,
And so,
that's the burning Barbie doll, right?
oh,
Like
totally.
that was
Like
the
fear,
acknowledgement of that.
right. And looking back, fear was always a part of my story. Like it didn't matter what aspect of whether we were talking about my sexual identity or like whatever, like it didn't like there was always this fear of this disappointing my father. Um and so like I had to do a lot of work on myself. Like it required me to get to a place where I started falling in love with myself, gave myself permission to fall in love with me. Um, I remember my second therapist in the whole process was uh, he shared with me. He was like, Matthew, I want you to work toward being your own best friend.
Hmm.
What would you do if you could make choices that you would hope that your very best friend would make on your behalf? Um, and when you're doing that and it's related to the idea of coming out and hurting like every single person that you love the most.
Yeah.
Like that is I like it just took a lot of work on myself for me to be able to do that and to be willing to give myself permission to do what I just did not want to do,
Right.
because I knew that every choice, like what didn't matter, like I knew that I was going to disappoint or hurt the most important people in my life.
Yeah, that's a huge weight to carry. And I can't imagine getting to that place and that feeling inside of you that is like, I have to do it. I know what is coming. I know the storm that I'm going to create. I know the grenade that I'm going to drop, but I have to do it. And I'm curious in that where you have this long process of getting to this place, but then also was there a moment in your mind, in your body, in your soul where there was urgency, where I have to do this now? Like, why now?
You know, that was in conjunction with Jessica, honestly, like my wife, and we went into therapy together in 2019, and right at the same time as we started therapy, our our friend Rachel Held Evans, as I mentioned before, she died, um, and so we were in the process of grieving the loss of what was happening in our story while all of our friends were also, in this communal grieving of losing Rachel. And so for a long time, we didn't feel the freedom or the ability to share what was happening in our story with any of them, any of our closest friends, because we felt selfish because they were like, or at least I felt selfish. I shouldn't speak on her behalf. Like, I felt selfish to do that because like everyone was grieving this great loss. And here I am, also in this process of grieving the loss of Rachel, but also in this process of grieving the loss of everything else I knew, the life that I knew. And so it was in marriage counseling that I was able to conjure up the courage to tell Jessica I was gay. And then it was 9 months after I told Jessica. We spent 9 months in this like circular experience of well, maybe we can try to do this, and and then I would try, and I would sink back into the depression, the sadness again, and it like we did that like 4 or 5 times, and then the pandemic hit, and in that pandemic, there was a moment where she was out walking, and she walked by a house that was about a half a mile away from where we were living, and she prayed, God, if we have to do this, let Matthew get this house. Let this house be something that Matthew can afford, and let it lead us toward being able to make this really difficult thing that we have to do.
Yeah.
And that's so something very tangible became the conduit, because I was, at the time, I felt very, without Jessica, I don't think I would have come out exactly how I came out or when I came out, because I would have, whether we divorced or not, I would have lived in fear. And the one thing that Jessica asked prior to us, separating was, if we're going to do this, if I want to be able to tell the truth, can you give me that gift? Wow. Which meant that I had to come out to my family, which meant that and there wasn't this big moment for me. There was this moment for Jessica that said, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like, we can't, like, this is not sustainable for either of us. And that was the catalyst toward us being able to make these really difficult choices and so telling my parents and my sisters that I was gay happened in June of 2020. And it was a wild day because we had told our kids that morning. And then that afternoon, I told my family. And it was, surrounded by love and grief with my kids, and disappointment and silence from my family. And so there was this really big dichotomy in that day. But like I've said before, Jessica was she was in the saddest moment of her life and still able to find it in her own soul to help me take that big leap.
That's a true,
which I
true
still
friend.
like. It's,
Right.
I mean, like it's still like I still sometimes think, wow, like I don't know where that came from in her.
Right.
I think to myself, as you're telling your story,
I've been crying and just thinking about what you grew up with and all the challenges you faced, and what a gift, a sacrifice and a gift that Jessica gave. A sacrifice of herself, knowing what it would cost and knowing what you were going to go through, and a gift to be able to walk that with you. What a gift.
I mean, it really was a gift. I can't explain it any other way.
Well, and you made it public, July 17th of 2020. And I would like to read some of your post. Dear friends, I have difficult news to share. After much thought, prayer, and counseling, Jessica and I have made the decision to end our marriage. While we're best friends and thoroughly love doing life, parenting, and pursuing our dreams together, ending our marriage is necessary because I am gay. Being gay isn't a new discovery for me. However, as someone who spent 30 plus years in fundamentalist evangelical churches, exploring God through conservative theologies, I've lived many days overwhelmed by fear, shame, and self-hatred. Though my own faith evolved long ago to become LGBTQ plus affirming, my journey toward recognizing, accepting, and embracing myself took much longer. For the first time in my life, despite the sadness and grief I'm feeling right now, I can say with confidence that I'm ready to embrace freedom, hope, and God as a gay man. I would not be able to say that without Jessica's undying grace and support. I fell in love with her 17 years ago and still love her deeply. Despite her own grief and pain, she has loved and encouraged me to be fully me. Many of the steps I've taken recently wouldn't have happened without Jessica walking beside me, helping me through every fear. Jessica is and always will be my hero. She's brave, strong, and showcases love like nobody I know. Our utmost desire is to move forward in love and compassion for each other and put the well-being of our kids first. Coming out to my kids was one of the hardest and most beautiful things I've ever done. That's amazing to me. And, I remember when I came out to my kids and their response was heartwarming and full of love as well, and even full of fear. I remember my middle daughter, she was totally fine and great with it, but she said, I'm worried someone will hurt you. That was her concern. She didn't care. We talked about Ellen. Ellen had just gotten married on her show. And I said, what do you think if Mimi ever married a woman? And they were all like, we don't care, that's great. And her main concern was, but I'm afraid someone will hurt you. And so she already knew that. And I think they can be the ones the most full of grace for us in those moments.
Well, I remember when Jessica and I were on the phone together and almost basically did a countdown on pushing send on that post. And I hung up and I fell flat on my face on this couch that I'm sitting on right now. And within seconds, my phone started dinging. Text messages from people just saying, hey, I love you. And I remember just thinking that I was convinced that everything was going to end. Yeah. Even in that moment. I just thought, this is not going to end well. But almost immediately, the people from every part of my story showed up on that day, whether it was via email or text or Facebook messages or in the comments. And the only memorable absence was members of my family, my mom and my sisters and my dad. They said nothing. But everyone else, like the overwhelming, I mean, yes, there was lots of jokes and lots of criticism and lots of all capital, all capitalized emails with Bible verses. But the overwhelming response was love, acceptance, cheering me on. And I didn't expect that. And it was such a beautiful lesson in grace, because like little did I know that even on that day, my journey toward accepting myself it was just beginning. Like I was so filled up with my own homophobia toward my own self that I still had so much work to do. But like when you don't love yourself, you don't know how to receive love from other people. So I questioned all the love, and I just, I diminished it in my own life. And so it wasn't until, long after that day of experiencing all that love, was I really fully able to bring it in and receive it, because I started to receive my own love toward myself. But that was like lots of work, lots of therapy, lots of healing, lots of grief, lots of getting stronger and more comfortable in my gay skin.
I love that phrase.
I love that.
Yeah, I know for me, you talked about internalized homophobia, and that's something that I talk about all the time, is just even doing work with Free Mom Hugs and seeing comments on social media that are so positive, and messages that we get and emails that we get. It was like, that is what healed me, but it took a lot of them. It wasn't just one person saying, nothing's wrong with you, I love you, be gay, and, have a great life. It took a lot to replace those messages of fear and shame.
Right. Well, when we grew up in church, when someone grew up in church, like we heard the word grace a whole lot, but we never experienced it tangibly. Like and so I didn't even know I wasn't even able to fully trust Jessica's grace in the beginning. Like I just thought that she secretly resented me, that she secretly there was an ulterior motive to it. I was so unhealthy in my thinking that I wasn't able to even process somebody else's grace toward me. I could process my parents' hatred, or their disappointment. The fact that my dad was embarrassed and still hasn't talked to me for, almost 4 years. I could process that because I'd been processing that for my entire life. I had not processed people's acceptance. I couldn't fathom that.
Right.
Now I had to heal in order to deal with both of those scenarios in a healthy manner. But the hatred was a lot more comfortable to sit in.
Yeah, that was your filter.
Because that's what I felt toward myself for so long. That I could understand.
Sorry, I'm thinking of the first time I heard the term internalized homophobia. You see, Katrina and Malia, very dear friends. I consider them some of my dearest friends, almost like daughters to me. But I was friends with Malia first. Malia had a family. She married young, trying to do the right thing, and then she came out late in life. And she came out to me before coming out officially, and so I knew what it cost her, having a family and the loss of that, and what she thought they would think. or behave. And then meeting Katrina and loving her dear friend like a daughter, and then seeing them meet and fall in love and find each other, and then come out, and all the ramifications of that, the ripple effect of that, both of them coming out late in life. And I remember the imagery of internalized homophobia is that we were walking on the plaza, and it was like they were hesitant to hold hands in a public space. And the plaza is very affirming. I mean, it's a wonderful place near where I live, and it's a safe place for a same-sex couple to hold hands. But yet that internalized homophobia kept them on guard. And the first time I saw them hold hand in public, and then the bittersweet of knowing what it cost them. I know Malia's family. I know her husband. I know their children then, and I know them now. And to know that journey and what it cost, and to be over the moon thrilled that they found love. And they're about to celebrate their 2nd-year anniversary, and I officiated their wedding. So we've gone from...
That's amazing. I love it.
Malia just coming out to me, going through that difficult divorce, and then them creating a home and the blended family that they have, and it's just beautiful to see, but I know what it cost them.
And you know, in the support for the spouse in the situation is there's so little support. There's so little spaces for them to turn to. When Jessica was in that part of the story, like when she was like searching for outlets, like there were there's a lot of outlets where negativity is the process. Like the spouses are negatively, complaining to each other about this horrible journey and this, grief, and it
becomes homophobic.
But it quickly turns homophobic and hateful, and so she just like did not want anything to do with it. And so I just think it's important to acknowledge the grief of the spouse, because they so often are ignored in this story, because I get celebrated, but this was Jessica's story too in this process. And now that I've done it's been 4 years, I have walked with a lot of people, sometimes the spouse, sometimes the person, who's coming out, walked with them on this journey toward, accepting themselves, and to see the grief from both sides has given me a clearer picture of just the love and acceptance that Jessica had for me, the need for there to be care groups for people who are walking through this so they can do it well. Jessica said, hey, if I'm going to get divorced, I guess the best reason for me to get divorced is my husband is gay. That's not a common thing for people to say.
Yes.
So, but yeah, it's what a beautiful journey it is, because that's for me when in the year after coming out publicly, that's when I started to see the lights come on. Like the lights started to shine, the sun started to come up, the fog lifted. And I've said before that there's a moment every single day that I wake up and I put my feet, I get out of bed and I put my feet on the floor, and there's a thought that crosses my mind that says, I get to live as my whole self today. And there's power in that, and there is beauty in that. And no matter whether I, find the love of my life, or whether I am, alone, like none of that matters, because I get to live my whole self. And I'd never experienced that before and my kids get to see their dad as his whole self. And so it's been a powerful awakening, especially that year after, as I adjusted to life in my full acceptance of my gay skin.
Yeah, that's so familiar, and camaraderie is a word, I think. Like, I just love you even more. And I know, I can only imagine how your kids love seeing you happy. And I would hope that they're getting to a place, if they aren't already, to be like, it is so cool to have a gay dad.
You know what? Thankfully, Jessica and I we didn't teach homophobia in our house. And so them accepting me as gay, now they were sad about mom and dad having to live in two different houses.
Of course, yeah.
That was certainly the harder part of the story. But me being gay was never, oh, okay, yeah. Like, I mean, it's like, they're some of my biggest cheerleaders in all of this. Like, my daughter and my youngest son, like, you know, my oldest was a little too old for this part of the process, but like, they can't pass a rainbow without, you know, giving me a wink or a nod toward me, or, you know, like, my son came home a couple days ago and said, Dad, there's a sign in our school that has a rainbow on it and that says everyone's accepted or everyone belongs, or something to that degree.
Yes.
And it was just the light and the smile that he, you know, comes home with. That is a beautiful thing. So they and it's so funny. There was, receiving their grace was never a problem. Like, there's something about your kids, the love that you share with them is there. It pushes through all the bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, it just, like, you don't, like, there's always that ability to receive that love from even despite not being in my healthiest state in certain parts of the journey. I was never not able to receive their grace and their love and their excitement for me. And so that was certainly a part of the joy in that experience. So
That's good news. That's good news. What is next for you?
I co-wrote a children's book with Rachel, or I finished Rachel's children's book, and book number 2 comes out in February.
Wow.
And I'm excited about that.
Congratulations.
And so, yeah, I'm in the process of writing a couple different things that are still not, I don't know, they're not at a place to talk about it, but like, I get to wake up every day and I get to share the stories of God in a way that is redemptive and full of delight and joy, and remind kids of how much they are loved, and and kind of redeem how I was offered that story about God. And so I never thought, it's 10 years ago, if you would have told me that I would be writing children's books full time or writing for children full time, I would have thought, I don't know how. That doesn't seem feasible. But that's what I do. And there's so much love and joy in it.
I'm so grateful for it. I think, sorry to interrupt you, Sarah.
It's okay. It happens all the time.
I know. But I was just going to say, Matthew, I mean, back in the 80s, what would I have given to have a Matthew Paul Turner book? To just
me
let
too.
me know,
I mean, I wish I had.
That's why you do it.
Yeah, that's why you do it. I think that's, we kind of do those things for ourselves, can you imagine if all of us could have written a book for ourselves as a younger person, as a younger gay kid trying to fit into a world that feels like the wrong planet. And I mean, how wonderful would it be if we all could just write a book to our younger selves?
Matthew.
It is. And you know, in the beginning, I really did think that I was writing. I got into this because I wanted to write stories about God for my own kids that were different than what I was raised in. But in this process, after coming out, and in this, like, when I was really deep in therapy and getting better and getting healthier, it was in that process that I realized that I've been writing these books to that kid in me all along. And it is like it's so funny because when I hear somebody else read something from When God Made You, or I Am God's Dream, or whatever, it takes on a different, like, it almost sounds like I know that it's mine, but I receive it in a way that it wasn't written by me. Like, I receive it in a way that it was like I receive it in a way that is just, I need those words. Yeah. I need those words. I need to hear them sometimes. And it's weird to be the writer of those words and also need those words.
Yeah. Matthew, we have a, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You're fine.
I get it from her. I get this.
We just get so excited, and we both have ADD, so we just have to cut each other off all the time.
well,
I'm speaking. No.
Go.
So, the last question that we like to ask our guest is, what gives you hope? But I think you just answered that so beautifully. You're doing exactly what you needed to have hope. So if I could put words in your mouth and say, Matthew Paul Turner gives himself hope.
Oh.
No, and you realize,
love you.
Last question, I swear I'll shut up, is, have you had a book banned yet? Because it's coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
I just want to prepare you.
I haven't. No, it's funny. I did have, when I first came out, I did have people call for my books to be burned, which is
craziness.
Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
Which is a weird thing to read. But it's no, I have yet to have a book banned. But it's
well, we're going to keep
wow.
fighting.
Just
that
banned
does
Charlotte's
not happen.
Web.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's wild.
It's weird.
The silencing that certain people desire to do to kids. It's like, it's just it's maddening.
It's weird.
Yeah.
That's the power of fear and ignorance. Matthew, you have been a delight. I'm going to call you by your first name, Matthew. Oh. I think that's endearing, Matthew. But if I'm excited about you, I'm going to call MPT. No, thank you so much.
I just want to say
it.
Thank you for all that you do to encourage love and acceptance from moms and daughters and people all over the world. Like, I don't take for granted when somebody shows up in my comments and they will say, I don't know who you are, but I want you to know that you are loved. Like, I don't like those, and so often those people get to that place because of groups like you, like the one that you run. And I
thank
just
you so much.
am like so grateful, because I am privileged in my story to have a circle of people who have always loved me. But there are so many who walk through journeys like mine who are so alone, and you help them feel less alone. And I am so grateful for all the work that you do.
Thank you. Last question, I swear.
Okay.
What was the first movie you saw?
Robin Hood, Men in Tights.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Oh, we love you so much.
We love you so.
Yes.
So,
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
hey, thank you.
Can you believe they banned Charlotte's Web?
I can and I can't. That's the hard part, right now.
I can't. I read that book like in the 5th grade. I love Charlotte's Web.
Right. I know. And that's part of, I think, what we're fighting. You know, we've had banned books week, and we've talked to Matthew about his books, and it just is unimaginable why people would take stories like this out of the hands of kids who need it. And, you know, we talked about what we wouldn't give to have had Matthew's book when we were young, just to let us know that we're accepted and loved for who we are. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand why there is such a passion to remove these beautiful stories from kids.
Yeah, but do you know why they banned Charlotte's Web?
Tell me, Sarah.
Talking animals.
No.
That's why. Can you believe just the audacity and the stupidity? It's like people know animals can't talk.
Right. It's so silly. Yes. Well, listen, I think that it's important for us to tell these stories. It's important to have people like Matthew on the podcast. You know, this is why we've called it Pride 365, is because telling stories is an every day of the year thing. And we have people trying to take away our stories 365 days of a year. So we have to keep fighting, and we have to keep telling stories, and we have to keep podcasting, because everybody needs to hear from amazing people like Matthew Paul Turner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am being a little silly when I keep harping on Charlotte's Web. And it's not Charlotte's Web. Was it Charlotte's Web? Who's the talking pig?
Yeah.
That's Charlotte's Web.
That is Charlotte's Web.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But the thing that gets me about this is that it helps with imagination, critical thinking, all of the things that we need to be well-rounded, adjusted human beings.
Right.
And if something as simple as Charlotte's Web to Matthew Paul Turner's, because you know it's coming.
Right.
You know, I'm a prophet.
Yeah.
And it's just astounding to me that it's happening.
Right. And we need these books, you know, we as LGBTQ people need to be able to see ourselves represented. But it also is that other people and other kids need to see people different from them represented in books. Mm-hmm. And that way it's not so strange and not so weird. And it just makes it normal that we're all different, and let's all just have fun on the playground.
Here's some snail mail shared with permission. Thank you for being you. I came out to my mom as pansexual, and she refused to listen to any complexities. She told me I can be gay when she's dead. I know she wanted to be funny, but I also have never told that story or how much it hurt me to another person. Seeing an article about you just made me feel like I could share it with you. Thank you for being supportive and a mother we all wish we could have sometimes. God bless you in all the good work that you do, Mom. Be sure to join us on our next episode. We cannot wait to have you hear from our upcoming guest, Jennifer Knapp, who has an incredible coming out story.
Yes, and a fascinating story of reinvention. She has ignited her seasoned, instead of saying old, music fans like you and me, and also created an entirely new generation of fans who identify with and are inspired by her music and her story.
I was so inspired by her. I wrote about her in my book. She's a glimmer of hope.
Yes, she absolutely is, and we cannot wait to have this conversation.
Stand up, won't you stand up, won't you? Stand
That's it for this episode of the Free Mom Hugs Pride 365 podcast, Out for Equality. Now promise this, Mama, you'll get out and vote.
This podcast is produced by our friends at Good Faith Media. Learn more at goodfaithmedia.org. Our music comes from Pond 5. Our theme song titled Stand Up is by queer Nashville artist Heather May, spelled M-A-E. She is at Heather May Music on all social media platforms. You can listen to Stand Up and more of Heather May's music wherever you stream or download music online. Check out the show notes for more.
Join the Free Mom Hugs community at freemomhugs.org, where you can learn, connect, and be proud.
Be sure to subscribe to this podcast, give us a like and rating, and tell your friends about it. We know there is someone out there who needs to know they are loved and valued, and that a whole community of people are fighting for them.
If you find yourself needing support and someone to talk to, don't hesitate to call or text 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, or reach out to our friends at the Trevor Project at thetrevorproject.org. Remember, you are not alone. Now stop what you're doing and let someone know that you love them, even if it's yourself.
Won't you stand up? Won't you? Won't you stand up? Stand up. Won't you stand up? Won't you? Won't you stand up? Stand up. Won't you stand up?